Beyond the Books is a podcast from the School of Literatures, Languages and Cultures at the University of Edinburgh that gives you a behind-the-scenes look at research and the people who make it happen. This week, we are talking to Katie Hawthorne. Katie is a final year PhD student in European theatre and German, and she's also a freelance writer and reviewer for The Guardian, The Skinny and The Stage, among others. Like our previous conversation with David Farrier, this episode of Beyond the Books was recorded in lockdown via Skype. It replaces a pre-COVID interview with Katie Hawthorne that I referred to in an earlier conversation with Rachel Chung. Katie's thesis is a comparative study of Scottish and German theatre and their audiences in a digital age, and as you'll hear us talk about, it's rapidly evolving to take into account changes in the industry brought on by COVID-19. It was really lovely to have Katie on. I'd not actually seen her in I think about 7 or 8 weeks, so it was great to catch up and to hear about her final sprint for the PhD submission finish line. As always, I hope you're all staying safe and keeping well. Thank you very much to Katie for coming on, and thank you to all of you for listening to us and for all of your lovely feedback. It's really appreciated. Enjoy the episode.
I was just wondering if we could kick off with you giving a little summary of how you came to LLC and what exactly is you're working on at the moment.
Yes. My coming to the LLC is probably pretty common in that I moved to Edinburgh to do a master's in 2014, and as part of that, the supervisor I was given for my dissertation project was Laura Bradley, who's now my supervisor, and I hadn't got any thought of doing a PhD at that point. I graduated from my master's, and then a year went on and I was still in touch with Laura, and she was asking me if I was thinking about any researchy things, and I was, and we just kind of very slowly kind of arrived at the idea that I might want to come back and study. And then I put together some funding applications, and it was really bit by bit. So I kind of came to the LLC, stepped away, stepped back in again, and here I still am. But in the LLC, I'm split between the German department with my supervisor, Professor Laura Bradley, the English department with Annette Lang, and then kind of the theatre playwriting subsection of the English department, I suppose, with Nicola McCartney. And I am very lucky to have all three of these amazing people supervise me, because my project is quite interdisciplinary. There wasn't like an obvious home for it, I guess. And so what I do is, over the last years now, I have been looking at Edinburgh and Berlin as cities, and using kind of 4 years worth of data on theatre performances and going to shows and interviewing people and so on to figure out if there is can I start again? So what it is that I do, what is it that I do?
Please keep this in.
You thought, honestly, it's very much how I feel. All right, one last go. Here we go. All right. So my PhD is about liveness, that kind of, for some people, like magical sensation that you get at like a live event, and kind of very hard to quantify exactly what that is. And a lot of the scholarship that has worked on doing that thus far has been very broad. It's been very like grand philosophically. It's often put liveness kind of in the context of we didn't know what we had until we could record other stuff. So we have live and then we have the not live is often how that kind of logic tends to go. It's Edinburgh and Berlin as cities that have lots of theatre in them, to examine how liveness might be different in different contexts, how different funding structures, for example, might shape how an audience or a theatre maker considers what is live or what isn't live. And ultimately, I'm trying to kind of step away from that binary idea of things that are either like a live performance or they're like a dead performance, I suppose. So that's my PhD in a nutshell.
A very good and very clear nutshell, and we got there in the end. It's maybe exciting is the wrong word. Stressful, exciting time for this research, and for you personally in the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot has kicked off and changed very, very quickly, and you wrote a really excellent article for The Stage about how live streaming, it was so good. I was so proud about how live streaming can help shape the post-COVID-19 theatre industry. And in that article, you wrote that liveness isn't magic dust, although it often feels like it. Liveness is economically driven, culturally specific, and tied to existing infrastructures, which I thought was a really, really gorgeous quote. I guess the question, and maybe it's a simple one, but I wanted to ask you anyway, what happens to liveness when those factors collapse or move radically beyond what we've known in our lifetimes, do you think?
Yeah, it is very stressful at the moment. I'd come to it in a couple of parts, I think. Firstly, that the change that is happening right now with kind of performance and ideas of liveness and digital technologies, everything's happening so fast. And for me to be in the last literally like maybe 2 months of my thesis, what a time for that to happen. So on the one hand, it's amazing. But on the other, it's kind of, stressfully exciting as a researcher to see kind of everything that I've been thinking about come into the mainstream, I suppose. And for example, I'm currently in the middle of participating in a theatre festival in Berlin from my bedroom in Edinburgh that I've actually been attending as a researcher for the last 4 years. Wasn't planning to go this year because I thought I'd be done, and lo and behold, they make a virtual version. So that's exactly the kind of thing I've been researching, and it's incredible and stressful. In terms of your question about the thing that I wrote, I don't think those contexts have collapsed. I think or at least they haven't yet. A lot of the decisions being made about what to do with theatre and if you should put it online or not during this time is still economically driven. For example, it's one of the central questions for a lot of people. How does my livelihood reshape itself under these conditions? So I definitely don't think that those contexts have gone away. It's just that they are some are really heightened, and some are maybe less so. But I still firmly believe that context kind of underpins how we come to these performances, how we consider them to be live, right down to what people ask us to pay for them, or if they don't, or if to like facilitate like a live chat afterwards, or like use a hashtag on Twitter to like unite all the watchers. All of those things to me are like different tools you can use to make something feel live, but you'll just shift them depending on what the context is, if that makes sense. So yeah.
You said in your article that your advice to theatres or theatre makers would be rethink, choose carefully, and finally hospitality, 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 which I think is a particularly important point. Not that it's not important nationally or elsewhere, but in the context of Edinburgh and the Edinburgh Festival and the huge amount of economic and accommodation insecurity that comes with that. And one question I wanted to ask are, what are the ways that Edinburgh as a city and Edinburgh Fringe as a whole need to rethink and reshape their relationship to theatre moving forward?
Yeah, God, that's a massive question.
Sorry.
No, I mean, I wish I knew the answer. I would be in demand if I did. I think one of the things that's becoming quite apparent is that things are going to be smaller for a while, right? Like even in maybe what feels like quite a distant future. I feel like the goalposts are changing all the time as well at the moment, right? Like it went from being like, oh, maybe things would open in June to being like, well, maybe things will open in September to maybe things will open next year. So it's hard to say whilst everything's still shifting. But what is quite clear is that when live arts experiences, the performing arts do come back in a way that we recognise them, they're going to have to be different. You can't just go squishing 1,000 people in a room for a while, I assume. So, or at least until we find a vaccine. So arts companies of all kinds, music as well, like dance, opera, sports, like club nights, like everyone will have to be reckoning with like how we gather differently. And that will obviously apply to the festivals as well. But there have been some other like efforts made at the Edinburgh festivals over the last few years to still perform without that kind of gathering that we think is necessary to these events, or we tend to think is necessary. So for various reasons, like some performers, because of a hostile environment, weren't able to get visas, so they find alternative ways of performing at the festival or having work presented at the festival using digital technologies, so they can still be present but not have to wrestle with the Home Office. Or a Canadian artist last year didn't want to make the trip to Edinburgh and put on a show in the traditional way because of her carbon footprint. She was trying to just not fly. And so she was using similar technologies to present a show and using performers local to Edinburgh who would have been here anyway to like stand in for her each night. So trying to find like, politically or social or like politically or like climate crisis related problems. I'm not saying this right. Trying to solve existing problems, but still putting on a performance. That's what I'm trying to get to. And so in some ways this isn't new. It's just hitting everybody in a way that hostile borders don't always.
And about how like essentially a lot of performers or practitioners or people are kind of playing catch up with models that have been there that predate them or that are pre-existing. And it just reminded me of something that you put on Twitter. Yes, I've been stalking the timeline. It's okay. But at the start of your research, so back in 2016, a lot of the theatres that you follow, particularly that you profile, particularly in the Berlin side of things, actually had quite a limited social media presence. And you said that even with free wine, the Theatertreffen, I can't speak German, I'm sorry, couldn't persuade people to watch recordings of the plays. And now obviously fast forward 4 years and you're sitting at a virtual festival in your bedroom. And things look very, very different right now. And we were kind of leaping back to what you said at the start, but I mean, how, obviously from a sort of research and practical perspective, that was very successful, but do you think that this is sort of a big sign of the direction that research on these kind of models is going to need to take?
I think, well, for one, when I saw the announcement that the Theatertreffen was going fully virtual this year, despite a couple of years ago, literally trying to bribe people to go and see play with wine. It was great. I don't know why more people didn't take it up. It's the kind of thing that people in the UK would pay like 25 quid for. So it was fascinating to me that they had such a difficult time trying to convince people to go. And now I'm sitting at my desk in Edinburgh taking part in the Theatertreffen virtually, just literally 2 years later, I think. It's mad. But I think it's definitely a good thing for me. Oh, I'm trying to see it as a good thing that I started researching how that festival dealt with live streams and other types of like presentations of theatre a good few years ago, because I have a baseline of things to compare it to, for this big shift. So I'm trying to count my blessings rather than just being like, oh God. For one. So that's quite good. But I do wish I hadn't literally just finished an article called Live Streaming at the Theatertreffen 2016 to 19. That doesn't feel very timely anymore, gotta say, but never mind. That'll just be an update to that, I guess, next year. But what can you do? But whether it's like the shape of things to come, I'm not sure. Like, part of me worries that this huge shift online during the pandemic is only going to result in a kind of backlash later. I think a lot of people are expecting digital tools to work miracles at this moment in time, and unless with like getting to know it and feeling comfortable with it and figuring out what it can do for you and what it can't, the rewards aren't immediate. And so what I wouldn't want to see is everyone jump online now, be like, why hasn't this fixed the pandemic? And then next year everyone will be like, oh, I hate digital. Do you remember when we all tried it and it was terrible? Like, I don't want that either. So yeah, part of me is excited, part of me is feeling quite cautious, I think, about the future.
You said, and this struck, I'm going to sound like such a Twitter creep by the end of this, but about the react. No, but I literally am a Twitter group, so it's on brand. But the reactionary screens are not theatres op-eds. And like that struck me as really interesting because, I mean, screens are not theatres, and it comes back to what you said. Should we expect them to be? Is there a danger of us expecting that screens can replicate the theatre in a very weird global context? I don't know.
Totally. And like, we can get amazing theatre from your screen, or like lots of theatres, traditional like brick and mortar theatres use screens within that. They're not mutually exclusive, or like incompatible. It's just it's unprecedented. I have to use the most boring word in the world just now. What's happened, like people were preparing to put their work online, like the work wasn't made for this context. People are adapting, and that's great, but that's not the same thing as making something bespoke, or like really having the time and the mental capacity and the resources to like explore what digital formats could do for your art, So it doesn't feel like a fair test to me.
No.
But then again, it might show some people that it can provide like a financial income for artists. Great, but I'm still not quite sure if that's actually happening. So
well, yeah, that's the big question. It's interesting with that, the kind of debate around productivity and a need to be productive or a need to be creative, and just this sort of constant social media narrative of, take the time to finish that play and finish your thesis in our case. And I've watched so many incredible. I watched the Dear Island theatre series from the Abbey on YouTube last week, which was really fantastic, and obviously plays from the National, and there's been a lot. But I just wonder if the fact that everyone now is attempting to move online, as you say, you have the reactionary side of things, but also I can't help thinking of people who maybe just can't work, or who feel kind of blocked or stunted by it, or who need to be in a theatre space and with other people physically to be able to create art. And I just worry sometimes, is that a barrier of some sort?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And like, if you're now suddenly like homeschooling your kids, like, like my mum's always wished I'd had a kid by now, and at the moment, thank God. Like, I have nothing but absolute respect to my friends that are now having to like juggle their work with 24/7 childcare and a curriculum. Wow, like madness. No, of course you can't work. Is when of course you can't. Like, of course you can't. And also pandemics turns out that they're really stressful. And like, even if your income is all right and you don't have any immediate carer duties, you're still worrying about the state of things. And I don't think we should be pushing ourselves. People keep saying what an amazing time to finish your thesis. Yeah, stupid. But also one of the things that it is doing on like a million levels across the country right now is that this pandemic is showing our failings as a society in terms of who we look after and who we don't, and how in my specific situation, how arts funding is distributed and who gets it, who gets to be an artist during this time and who literally can't from tons of reasons. And some of the great theatres there, and it's all big names, lots of very acclaimed white people, basically. It's like the same old suspects, and that's actually one of the things that's proving really interesting. I'm really glad that I had the comparative angle to my studies all along, because not that Germany doesn't have its own problems, but in terms of arts funding, the two countries are very different. And in the UK, I think lots of makers are really relying on borrowing money, and their incomes are really precarious, and many will be really feeling the lack of the fringe this year. Whereas in Germany, I don't want to generalize, but funding is a lot more long term and stable often. So there hasn't felt like there's been that same like panicked rush towards finding other means in theatre at least, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
Whereas, I was speaking to some theatre companies a couple of weeks ago who were like asking me what I thought, like how best I thought they should put their work online, like how could it work, what would be effective, blah blah blah, because they wanted to be able to show the Arts Council that they'd still tried to do something, so they'd still get the last bit of their funding. And you just shouldn't have to be doing that right now,
No.
But which is a long-winded way around to say that things are unfair, and this just makes things even more unfair. I guess
it's really interesting, the differences culturally with Germany, and just the stability, I guess, and the cultural value of arts as and people who make art as people that you invest in, and that you sustain sort of systematically. And it just strikes me as something that we would do well to imitate, or to try and emulate moving forward.
Definitely in some ways, yeah.
As a sort of tangent to that, I'm asking, not a very smooth one, but hey, I'm asking everyone if they've found any unexpected benefits to working differently, so either in their research or just working from home, and if there are any practices or lessons that you think you'll carry forward into how you work. I'm not going to say at the end of this because that feels a bit too sort of fatalist, but moving forward.
I think when this is over, if it is, I'll just be really grateful anytime I ever get to work at a coffee shop.
Oh God, yeah.
I did get an emergency desk from IKEA at the start because I didn't have a desk in our flat that I could work on, and it's in our room next to the window, and actually it's pretty nice. So I guess I'll probably still work here in the future. I always thought I wouldn't want a desk in our bedroom, but there was nowhere else to put it, and actually I quite like it. So that's, a good thing to know. But I wouldn't say I felt any real benefits. No, sadly, I don't. It's not been like terrible.
No, but
I'm really missing access to the library. It's been a big issue. I just, just at this stage of research, there's not a digital version of the book via our library, and then to buy it on Amazon is like 70 quid, and it's Amazon. So I'm like, cool. What do I do about that then?
Oh man, I think the only benefits I've got is I've realised a lot of food items that I spend, quite frankly, ridiculous amounts of money on are an entire scam. Like hummus. Why have I ever bought hummus in my life? It takes like 10 minutes and costs like $5 for a pot. Like, I mean, I'd like to say I'm going to carry that forward. I don't think I am.
We'll see. I mean, next time I see you buying hummus, I'll be like, drop it. Wheel
it in. I'm also asking people for TV shows, podcast recs, that kind of thing. I also thought I should tell you that I finally watched A Simple Favor, and like you told me it was true.
It's not safe for work. But I don't know. What have I been doing? Honestly, couldn't tell you. Oh no, I've been playing The Sims. That's the sad truth of the matter. And otherwise, I have no idea. Oh, I've been doing Couch to 5K. Who am I? So
I love Couch to 5K.
I historically hate running, but that is what this pandemic boredom has driven me. It's like the stock imagery of pop.
It is. Do you know what I mean? It is. It really is. It's like Getty Images for.
I love it. Yeah, obsessed. And I like when another one starts, and I'm like, are they trying to rip off Sexy Back? I think they might be.
Yeah.
And that's quite a nice distraction from the hell that is otherwise exercise.
I swear they sampled Dappy at one point as well.
Yeah, no, I actually think I know the one you mean. Yeah, there's one that's like definitely a big Lily Allen ripoff, one that's definitely a big Kings of Leon ripoff. So
yes,
I quite like thinking about who on earth made that song happen. Whilst like, that's my favourite podcast, you guys. Bastion of culture. That is the Couch to 5K soundtrack. So
excellent. Have you resorted to making sourdough? And if so, have you managed to find any wholemeal flour?
No, and no. I don't think I have, like, it's quite revealing, isn't it, what people want to do with their time. And I found out that I'm not homely like that, you know. I've not got that kind of nesting impulse.
You are
Okay.
the single best person to talk to about plant care.
Yeah.
When I know.
That's my one skill.
I have killed every single plant in the house. That's not a lie. Like even
since the pandemic.
Yeah, and I've got to look after some other people's plants, succulents and non-succulents. This is how rubbish I am at looking after plants. Any tips for people like me who are stuck inside with plants and don't know what to do with
I think us being stuck inside with the plants is the worst thing for them, honestly. Because when you're bored, you just chuck your half-drunk cup of water in your nearest plant, which is an understandable impulse. But don't do it, because normally you'd be out the house and they'd have at least 12 hours a day respite from you doing that, whereas now we're at home all the time. So I think we're just overwatering them a lot, because I've heard a lot of people say they've killed their plants during this pandemic, and I think you just need to show them a bit less love for a time, like leave them alone for a week.
Socially distance from your plants.
Yeah, I think it's quite easy to forget to water them when you have a busy life that's not locked in your, but you're probably watering them like 100 times more than you would have been. So
that's true.
Yeah, give them a break.
I will. Any artists or musicians that you want to plug, whose work you want to give a shout out, because you also wear a music journalist hat?
Yes, I do. All of them.
Okay, cool.
Well, actually, I think a good thing is the whole music industry, like most artists' income in the music industry is dependent on touring. Streaming is famously not lucrative, and no one buys albums anymore. So if you want to support a musician that you like, you should probably try and buy their record.
It's very
old
true.
School, I know, but it's worth a thought. And it's a really amazing platform for buying and selling music, is doing one day every month. I can't remember when, but it will say on the website that they don't even take the cut from the sale. So say you buy a record for a tenner, that entire tenner will go to the artist, rather than it being like £9.50 goes to them and 50p goes to the website. Do you know what I mean? So they're like a very good, ethical, artist first platform.
We will plug that and pop it in the show notes. Last question before I give you a final update. We're asking everyone, and I know I said I wasn't going to be fatalistic, and I don't want to be, and I'm not going to put when things lessen or social distancing or restrictions become a bit easier, what is, other than working in a coffee shop, what are you most looking forward to doing?
Actually going swimming. I don't know why, because I don't swim very often. I have lots of dreams about swimming, so I know, and I want to have a pint outside with my friends.
Same. Hopefully we'll have submitted by then.
Although I might just save finishing for a later date at this point.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
It'd be sad to finish inside by yourself.
So, I know.
Actually, no. If my supervisors are listening, that is not true. I feel cheated if I hand it in and then go back to playing The Sims. That's not the life I want.
And you also memorably told me that when you submit, you want a brass band to follow you in. And
did I say that?
Yeah, you said that you wanted a brass band playing Robin to follow you into George Square.
I would take that.
I know you've got to hop back onto the theatre.
I do actually, yeah.
So I will let you go. But thank you so much for coming to chat with me.
Thank you for having me.
It's been great. Thank you so much.